Good evening, everyone. Before tonight's whispered tales begin, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Where are you listening from, and what time is it? The more you engage, the more these untold stories will haunt your feed. Now, let's uncover the secrets together. I've been running the same route every morning for 3 years now. 5 miles through the residential streets near the coast, always starting at 6 a.m., always the same loop. It's muscle memory at this point. Left out of my driveway, down to Ocean Avenue, follow it north for 2 miles, cut through the park, then back home. I don't even think about it anymore. Or at least, I didn't until last Tuesday. November mornings here are different from the rest of the year. The fog rolls in thick from the water, and after the time change, 6 a.m. feels like the middle of the night. It's that gray, murky darkness that makes everything look washed out and strange. I usually like it, though. The quiet. The way the streetlights create these little halos in the mist. Most people are still asleep, so I have the whole neighborhood to myself. That morning, the fog was particularly heavy. I could barely see 15 feet ahead of me. My breath came out in clouds that mixed with the mist, and the wet leaves on the sidewalk muffled my footsteps. I'd made it about a mile into my run, just past the elementary school, when I first saw the figure. It was standing on the sidewalk ahead of me, maybe 20 feet away, right at the edge of where the fog turned everything into gray nothing. Just a dark silhouette, completely still. I didn't think much of it at first. Sometimes you see other early risers, dog walkers mostly, or someone getting their newspaper. I kept running, expecting them to move or wave or do something, but as I got closer, they didn't. And then maybe 10 feet away, I couldn't see them anymore. The fog had just swallowed them up. I ran through the spot where they'd been standing. Nobody there. The sidewalk was empty. I turned around, checking behind me, but there was nothing except fog and the faint glow of the streetlight I'd just passed. I picked up my pace a little. Something about it sat wrong with me, though I couldn't say exactly what. I continued my route, turning onto Maple Street like I always do. My heart rate was up, but I told myself it was just from the run. The fog seemed even thicker here, pressing in close. And then I saw them again. Same figure, same posture, standing on the sidewalk ahead, maybe 25 feet away this time, completely motionless. I actually stopped running. My shoes squeaked on the wet pavement as I came to a halt, and I just stared. The figure didn't move, didn't turn toward me or acknowledge me at all, just stood there, facing my direction. I pulled out my phone, thinking I'd use the flashlight, but my hands were shaking and slick with fog moisture. By the time I got it out and looked up, the figure was gone again, vanished into the gray. I stood there for what felt like a full minute, my breath coming harder than it should from just 2 miles of running. Every rational part of my brain was trying to explain it away. Someone out for a walk. A mailbox I'd mistaken for a person. The fog playing tricks. But I'd lived here for years. I knew every mailbox on this route. I should have turned back. I know that now. But there's this stupid thing that happens when you're scared but not quite scared enough. You don't want to seem crazy, even to yourself. So I kept going, telling myself I was being ridiculous, that I'd feel stupid about this later. The third time I saw the figure, it was closer. I just turned into the park, onto the path that cuts through to the other side, when there it was again. Maybe 15 feet ahead this time. And I could make out more details now, even through the fog. Tall. Wearing what looked like a dark coat. Head tilted slightly, like they were listening for something. I opened my mouth to call out, to say something, anything, but my throat had gone completely dry. I didn't wait for it to disappear this time. I turned around and started running back the way I'd come. Not sprinting, not yet, but faster than my usual pace. My shoes slapped against the wet path, and I could hear my own breathing, ragged and too loud. Behind me, I heard something else. Footsteps. Heavy and deliberate, matching my rhythm. I made it out of the park and back onto Maple Street. The fog was starting to thin a little as I got further from the water, and I could see more of the streetlights now, strung out ahead of me like a chain of dim pearls. I didn't look back. I didn't want to know if something was there or how close it might be. I just ran. When I finally turned onto my street, I did look back. The road behind me was empty. No figure, no footsteps. Just fog and silence, and the first weak hints of actual sunrise starting to turn the gray a little lighter. I made it to my front door, fumbled with my keys for what felt like forever, and practically fell inside. I stood in my entryway for a long time, door locked, heart pounding, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it. Fog does strange things to perception. I'd been tired. It was dark. My mind had played tricks on me. That's what I told myself. But here's the thing I can't explain away. After I'd calmed down, after I'd showered and had coffee and started to feel normal again, I went back outside to check my Ring doorbell footage. I wanted to see what time I'd gotten home, wanted to see myself running up to the door looking spooked, wanted proof that I'd just been scared of nothing. The footage showed me running up at 6:47 a.m. exactly like I remembered. But in the background, back at the edge of where my driveway meets the street, there's a figure standing in the fog. Just standing there, watching me unlock my door. And it stays there for 3 more minutes after I go inside before the fog shifts, and it's just gone. I haven't run that route since. I don't think I ever will again. I found the place on Airbnb back in September. A big old farmhouse in rural Vermont, perfect for our family Thanksgiving. The photos showed exposed beams, a huge country kitchen, and enough bedrooms for everyone. The host had great reviews, and the price was reasonable for the whole week. I booked it immediately, excited to give my family a real New England holiday experience. We arrived on the Sunday before Thanksgiving, just as the sun was setting. The drive up had taken longer than expected. Narrow roads through dense woods, then finally a gravel driveway that wound up to the house. It was exactly like the pictures. White clapboard, black shutters, a wide front porch. My wife loved it immediately. The kids were already running around claiming bedrooms before we'd even unloaded the car. The first night was perfect. We made dinner in that beautiful kitchen, played board games by the fireplace, and everyone went to bed happy. I remember thinking I'd made a great choice. That feeling lasted until Tuesday morning. I was the first one up, around 6:30. I went down to make coffee and found the refrigerator door slightly ajar. Not wide open, just cracked enough that the light was on, and cold air was spilling out. I figured one of the kids hadn't closed it properly the night before. But when I looked inside, I noticed things had been moved around. The milk was on a different shelf. Some leftovers were gone. A container of mashed potatoes I distinctly remembered putting away. I mentioned it at breakfast, asking if anyone had gotten up for a snack during the night. Everyone said no. My wife suggested maybe I was misremembering where I'd put things. I let it go, but it bothered me more than it should have. That afternoon, it started snowing. Not the gentle, picturesque snow I'd imagined for our Vermont Thanksgiving. Heavy, wet flakes that piled up fast. By evening, we had 6 inches, and the forecast was calling for another 8 overnight. The kids were thrilled. My wife and I exchanged worried glances. The driveway was steep, and we had a 2-wheel drive SUV. Wednesday morning, I woke up to find a door open. The door to the basement. I'd noticed it on our first day. An old wooden door with a simple latch tucked under the stairs. I'd tried the handle out of curiosity and found it locked. Now it stood open about 6 inches, and cold air was flowing up from below. I called down the stairs. No answer. I closed the door firmly and flipped the latch. It clicked into place, locked tight. At lunch, my son said he'd heard footsteps in the hall outside his room the night before. He thought it was his sister going to the bathroom, but when he checked this morning, she said she'd been asleep all night. My daughter then mentioned that someone had moved her backpack. She'd left it by the door, and now it was sitting on the chair across the room. We all looked at each other. My wife laughed it off, said old houses make weird noises. We were probably all just moving things and forgetting. But I saw the look in her eyes. She was thinking the same thing I was. That afternoon, I went down to the basement. I had to force myself to do it. The stairs were old and creaky, the light from the single bulb barely reaching the corners. It was mostly empty. Some old furniture covered in sheets, boxes of what looked like holiday decorations, a water heater humming in the corner. But in the back, I found a sleeping bag rolled up behind the furnace. It was relatively new, clean. Beside it was a bottle of water and some granola bar wrappers. I didn't tell anyone. I don't know why. Maybe because we were already snowed in. The storm had dumped 14 inches and the driveway was impassable. Maybe because I didn't want to scare the kids. Maybe because I was hoping I'd find some rational explanation. That night, I barely slept. Every sound made me tense. The house settling, wind rattling the windows, and once, around 3 a.m., footsteps. Definite footsteps, slow and careful, moving through the hallway upstairs. I got up and checked on everyone. The kids were asleep. My wife was asleep. I searched the entire second floor with my phone's flashlight. Nothing. Thursday morning, Thanksgiving. I went to get the turkey from the refrigerator to start prepping it. The turkey was gone. 15 pounds of frozen turkey, just gone. My wife stared at the empty space where it should have been. We'd bought it specifically for this trip, packed it in a cooler for the drive up. She'd put it in the fridge herself when we arrived. That's when my daughter started crying. She said she'd seen someone. Last night, when she got up to use the bathroom, she'd seen a figure standing at the end of the hallway, just standing there in the dark, watching her. She'd thought it was me. She'd gone back to bed and tried to forget about it, but it wasn't me, was it? I'd been downstairs. We had a family meeting right there in the kitchen. Everyone admitted to things they'd noticed. Doors they'd found open, food missing, sounds. My son said he'd seen a shadow pass by his window, on the inside, the night before. My wife confessed that she'd found muddy footprints in the upstairs bathroom that morning, too large to be any of ours. I went back down to the basement. The sleeping bag was gone. So was the water bottle. But there were wet footprints on the concrete floor, leading from the back corner to the stairs, then just stopping. We packed everything in under an hour. I didn't care about the driveway conditions anymore. We loaded up the SUV, and I drove down that steep, snowy hill going maybe 5 miles an hour, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. We slid twice, but made it to the main road. We ate Thanksgiving dinner at a Cracker Barrel off the highway. None of us talked about what had happened. We didn't need to. We all knew someone had been in that house with us, living there, hiding, watching. I tried to get a refund from Airbnb, but what was I supposed to say? The host denied everything, said we'd damaged property and left early. I didn't push it. I just wanted to forget. But sometimes, late at night, I think about that sleeping bag behind the furnace. How warm it must have been back there. How someone could have stayed hidden for days, coming out only when we were asleep, taking just enough that we'd notice, but not enough to be sure. And I wonder if they're still there, in that big farmhouse, waiting for the next family to arrive. I've been working security for 6 years now, and I've seen a lot of weird things on the night shift. People forget their badges and try to sneak in through loading docks. Couples using empty conference rooms for things conference rooms aren't meant for. Once, I found a guy living in a storage closet on the 4th floor. He'd been laid off 2 weeks earlier and was too embarrassed to tell his family. But what happened last November was different. I still don't have an explanation for it, and I'm not sure I want one. The building is a 10-story office complex downtown. During the day, it houses maybe 500 people across various companies. At night, it's just me and whoever's working late, which in November is almost nobody. The week before Thanksgiving, the place becomes a ghost town. People take vacation days, work from home, leave early. By 9 p.m., I'm usually alone. That Tuesday night, November 21st, I was doing my usual rounds. The building management turns the heat down to 60 degrees after 6 p.m. to save money, so I was wearing my jacket and walking the floors with my flashlight, checking doors and windows. Everything was quiet. I got back to the security desk around 11:30 p.m. and settled in to monitor the cameras and finish my incident reports. We have 42 cameras throughout the building. My desk has a monitor wall showing 16 feeds at a time, rotating through all 42 on a loop. Lobby, parking garage, stairwells, elevators, major hallways. I've watched these feeds for so long that I barely pay attention anymore unless something moves. Around 12:15 a.m., I decided to review some footage from earlier in the evening. There'd been a door alarm on the third floor around 8 p.m., and I needed to document it for my shift report. I pulled up the recording and scrolled back to 8 o'clock, watching the third floor hallway feed at double speed. At 20:04:17, I saw myself walk into frame. I watched myself try the door that had triggered the alarm, a storage room that's always locked. I watched myself pull out my keys, unlock it, and go inside. The timestamp showed I was in there for 6 minutes and 32 seconds. Then I watched myself come out, lock the door, and walk back down the hallway toward the elevator. I sat there staring at the screen, my coffee going cold in my hand. I had no memory of this, none. I checked my physical logbook, where I'm supposed to record every door I unlock, nothing written down for 8 p.m. I checked the alarm log on the computer. The door alarm had triggered at 20:04:15, 2 seconds before I appeared on camera. If I'd opened the door, the alarm should have triggered when I opened it, not before. I told myself I was tired. Night shift messes with your head. I'd probably gone up there, checked it out, and just forgot to log it. It happens. The brain does weird things when you're running on 5 hours of sleep and too much coffee. But then I started wondering what I'd been doing in that storage room for 6.5 minutes. I pulled up the interior camera feed for the room. We have cameras in most storage areas because of theft issues. I scrolled to 20:04:17 and watched. The room was dark except for the hallway light spilling in when the door opened. I saw myself enter silhouetted in the doorway. I saw myself walk directly to the back corner, where we keep the archived files. I watched myself pull out a specific box. I could see it was labeled, though I couldn't read what it said on the camera. I watched myself open the box and remove a folder. I watched myself stand there, completely still, reading something in that folder for 6 full minutes. And then I watched myself put the folder back, replace the box, and leave. The whole time, my movements were smooth and purposeful. I knew exactly where I was going, exactly what I was looking for. I had absolutely no memory of any of it. My hands were shaking when I paused the footage. I sat there for a long time, trying to logic through it. Maybe I'd been on autopilot. Maybe someone had asked me to check something earlier in the day, and I'd done it without thinking. But nobody had asked me anything. And I'd never been in that storage room before in my 6 years working here. I forced myself to keep reviewing the camera feeds. I pulled up the lobby footage from my arrival at 18:00. I watched myself badge in, wave to the camera like I always do, head to the security desk. Normal. I checked the feeds for my 9 p.m. rounds. I watched myself checking doors on the 2nd floor, the 5th floor, the 7th floor. All normal. All matching what I remembered doing. Then I checked the parking garage footage from 20:00 to 20:15, just to be thorough. At 20:03:41, I saw myself exit the elevator into the garage. I watched myself walk to my car, open the trunk, and stand there looking into it for almost 2 minutes. Then I watched myself close the trunk without taking anything out, and walk back to the elevator. I don't own a car. I take the bus to work. I don't even have a driver's license. I lost it years ago after a DUI and never bothered to reinstate it. I checked the employee parking database. Sure enough, Space G47 was registered to the security desk. Had been for 3 years, apparently. The camera showed a silver Honda Civic parked there. I could see the license plate clearly in the footage. I went down to the garage. I had to see it for myself. Space G47 was empty. Just an oil stain on the concrete and a crumpled receipt that had blown under where a car might have been parked. When I got back to the desk, I started pulling more footage, going back through the whole month. November 14th. I watched myself enter the building at midnight and spend 45 minutes in the executive offices on the 10th floor. I don't have keys to the executive offices. November 8th. I watched myself having a conversation with someone in the lobby, gesturing, clearly talking, about something serious. The lobby was empty. There was no one there. November 3rd. I watched myself carry a cardboard box out to that silver Honda that doesn't exist. I called my supervisor at 2 a.m. I didn't care that I'd wake him up. I tried to explain what I was seeing, but it came out confused and panicked. He told me to finish my shift, and we'd talk in the morning. He said night shift hallucinations are common, that I should take a few days off. I wrote up my incident report. I documented everything with timestamps and camera references. I saved all the footage to a drive, and then I sat at that desk until my relief came at 6 a.m., watching the live feeds, making sure that the real me, the me sitting at the desk, never left my seat. I haven't worked a night shift since. I told them I needed to move to days for personal reasons, and they accommodated me. I never went back to retrieve that drive with the footage. I don't want to see it again, because the worst part isn't what I saw myself doing. It's that I watched myself, on those cameras, doing things with confidence and purpose. Like whoever that was knew exactly what they were doing. Like they'd done it many times before, and I can't shake the feeling that somewhere, on some other camera system I can't access, the real me is still showing up. Still going through motions I'll never remember. Still living a life I'm not aware of. I just don't know which one of us is real. I've been hunting since I was 12 years old. My grandfather taught me, and his father taught him. It's in my blood. The patience, the stillness, the understanding of how the woods work. I know how to read signs, how to move quietly, how to wait. Opening day of rifle season is practically a holiday in my family. November 15th, every year without fail, I'm in the woods before sunrise. This year was no different, except for what happened. I'd scouted the property back in October and found the perfect spot. A ridge overlooking a natural funnel where deer move between bedding areas and a creek. I'd set up my stand 3 weeks earlier, a ladder stand about 15 feet, up in an oak tree with a good field of view. The landowner had given me permission to hunt there, and I'd seen plenty of sign. Rubs on the saplings, scrapes in the dirt, tracks everywhere. It was going to be a good season. I got there at 5:30 in the morning, a full hour and a half before legal shooting light. That's standard practice. You want to be settled and still before the woods wake up, before the deer start moving. It was cold that morning, maybe 25 degrees, and my breath came out in thick clouds that I tried to minimize. Every sound carries in the pre-dawn silence. I climbed up into the stand as quietly as I could, got myself situated, and began the wait. The woods in November are different from any other time of year. The leaves are down so you can see further, but that also means you're more visible. Every branch is bare and stark. The understory is just gray trunks and brown earth. When the sun finally started to rise around 7, it came up weak and pale, barely warming anything. I could see maybe 60 yards in most directions, the landscape rendered in shades of gray and brown with no green left anywhere. I'd been sitting there for about an hour, perfectly still when I first heard it. Footsteps. Not the light, careful steps of a deer. Heavy footfalls, crunching through the frost-stiffened leaves. Something big moving through the woods to my left, maybe 40 yards out. I slowly turned my head, trying to see what it was. Could be another hunter, though I hadn't seen any trucks at the access point. Could be a bear, though they should be denning up by now. The footsteps stopped. Complete silence for maybe 3 minutes. Then they started again, closer now. 30 yards, moving parallel to my position. Still couldn't see what it was. Too many trees in the way, and whatever it was stayed in the thicker cover. But the way it moved bothered me. Deliberate, methodical. Not the random wandering of an animal. I've sat in tree stands through thunderstorms, through sleet, through winds that made the whole tree sway. You learn to stay still no matter what. Moving is what gets you spotted. So I didn't move. I kept my rifle ready and my eyes scanning the woods, trying to catch a glimpse of whatever was out there. The footsteps stopped again, and this time they didn't start back up. 5 minutes passed. 10. The sun was fully up now, weak as it was, and legal shooting light had arrived. I could hear crows in the distance, and somewhere a woodpecker was hammering on a dead tree. Normal sounds, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. Then I heard it behind me. The same heavy footsteps, but now they were on the other side of my tree. 20 yards, maybe less. My stand faces east, and whatever this was had somehow circled around to the west without me hearing it move. That's not possible. The leaves were dry and brittle. Frost made everything louder. Nothing that size moves silently through November woods. I wanted to turn around, but that's not easy in a tree stand. You're essentially strapped into a seat, facing one direction. Turning requires shifting your whole body, and the stand will creak, and whatever's out there will know you've spotted it. So I sat there, frozen, listening to something breathe behind me. Heavy breaths. Steady. Patient. My grandfather's voice was in my head, all his lessons about staying calm, about not panicking. But those lessons were about deer, about missing a shot or having your scent give you away. They weren't about this. This feeling of being hunted. The breathing stopped. I counted to 30 in my head, trying to decide what to do. Climb down and leave. But that means exposing myself, making noise, turning my back completely to whatever was out there. Stay put and wait it out. But wait for what? What was I waiting for? I heard movement again, but this time in front of me back where it started. 40 yards out, moving right to left. I could see branches moving now, something pushing through the understory. It was circling me, actively, deliberately circling my position, and it was staying just far enough back that I couldn't get a clear view of it. The woods were fully awake now, normal sounds everywhere, but all I could focus on was those footsteps, the pattern of them. Circle to the left, stop, wait, circle around behind, stop, wait, circle to the right. It was methodical, calculated. Whatever was out there was studying me, figuring me out. Another hour passed like that. The longest hour of my life. I never saw what it was, just heard it, circling, stopping, breathing. My fingers were numb from the cold, but I didn't dare move them. My back ached from sitting so rigidly still. My neck cramped from the tension. But I didn't move. Around 9:30, it just stopped. The footsteps moved away to the north, getting fainter. And then there was nothing. Just wind and crows and that distant woodpecker. I sat there for another 30 minutes, making sure it was really gone. Then I climbed down from that stand faster than I've ever climbed down from anything, and I walked out of those woods trying not to run. I checked the ground where I'd heard those footsteps most clearly. The leaves were disturbed, but I couldn't make out clear tracks. The frost had melted by then, and the leaf litter was too churned up to show anything definitive. But there was a print near my tree in a small patch of exposed dirt. It looked like a boot print, large, size 13, maybe 14. But the tread pattern was wrong, not like any hunting boot I've ever seen. The edges were too smooth, almost worn away. I went back 2 weeks later to retrieve my stand. Didn't hunt from it. Just climbed up, unstrapped it, and carried it out. When I got up there, I found something carved into the tree trunk, right at eye level from the stand seat. 3 parallel lines, deep gouges in the bark, fresh. They hadn't been there when I'd set up the stand in October. I haven't hunted that property since. The landowner asked me why, and I didn't know what to tell him. How do you explain that something in those woods knows what a tree stand is, knows what it means, and knows how to hunt the hunter? You can't. So I just said I'd found a better spot elsewhere, but I think about it sometimes, usually right before sleep. Whatever was out there that morning, it had all the patience I had, all the stillness, all the understanding of how to move through those woods. And it knew I was there before I ever heard it. It had probably watched me hang that stand back in October, watched me scout, learned my patterns the same way I learned deer patterns. I still hunt, but now I only go to places where I can see everything around me. Open fields, clear sight lines, no trees to climb. Because the thing about being up in a tree stand is you think you're above it all, safe, hidden. But you're not. You're just trapped 15 feet in the air with nowhere to go. And if something down below knows that, if it understands that, then you're not the hunter anymore. You're just bait. I've always been a night person. In high school, I did my best work after midnight. So when I got to college, I fell in love with the library's 24-hour policy during finals weeks. Most students complained about dead week, that brutal stretch right before Thanksgiving break when you have 3 papers due and 2 exams to study for. But I thrived in it, especially in those deep hours between 2 and 5 a.m. when the building was nearly empty and I could spread out my notes and really focus. The library is this massive, brutalist concrete building from the 70s, 6 floors of study spaces and stacks. During the day, it's packed. Every seat taken, students everywhere, constant low hum of activity. But during dead week, especially the week before Thanksgiving break, it empties out. Most people go home early, or they're the types who study in their dorms. By 2 a.m., you might see 10 people in the entire building, scattered across 6 floors like ghosts. That's how it was on November 20th. I'd claimed my usual spot on the 4th floor, a table tucked back in the corner near the psychology section, where hardly anyone ever goes. I had my laptop, 3 textbooks, a thermos of coffee, and my notes spread out in that chaotic system that somehow made sense to me. I'd gotten there around 11 p.m. and the floor had been fairly busy, maybe 15 people studying. But as midnight passed, then 1 a.m., people trickled out. By 2:15, I looked around and realized there was only one other person on the entire floor. They were sitting at a table across from mine, maybe 20 feet away. I hadn't really noticed when they'd sat down. You don't, when you're deep in studying. But now that I was aware of them, I found myself glancing up occasionally. They were reading a book, or at least the book was open in front of them. Large hardcover, dark clothes, hood up. I couldn't see their face very well because of the angle in the hood, but that wasn't unusual. Lots of people wore hoodies in the library. The air conditioning was aggressive. I went back to my work, reading about cognitive behavioral therapy for my psych final. The library at night has this particular quality of silence. It's not true silence. There's the hum of the ventilation system, the distant sound of the elevator, the occasional fluorescent light that buzzes. But it feels silent, heavy, and thick. Your own page-turning sounds loud. After about 20 minutes, I looked up again. The person hadn't moved. Same position, same posture, book at the same angle. Hadn't turned a page. I went back to my notes, telling myself I was just procrastinating, looking for distractions. I had another chapter to get through. But 15 minutes later, I looked again. Still hadn't moved. The book was definitely at the same page. I could see it from where I sat, a page on the right side with a large block of text. Something about it started to bother me. I'm the kind of person who shifts constantly when I study. Lean back, lean forward, cross legs, uncross legs, stand up and stretch. Everyone does. You can't sit perfectly still for 40 minutes straight, especially at 2:30 in the morning. I tried to focus on my work, but now I was aware of them in a way I hadn't been before. In my peripheral vision, I could see them sitting there, absolutely motionless. I started timing it in my head, counting seconds between glances. 5 minutes, no movement. 10 minutes, nothing. Not even a shift of weight or a hand moving to turn a page. That's when I started to feel uneasy. I'm not someone who scares easily. I'd spent dozens of nights alone in this library at weird hours, but there was something deeply wrong about someone sitting that still for that long. I tried to see if their chest was moving, if they were breathing, but the distance and the hoodie made it impossible to tell. I should have just left. That's what I think now, looking back. I should have packed up my stuff and gone to a different floor or gone home. But I was in that weird space where you're tired and wired at the same time, where your brain doesn't quite work right. And I didn't want to seem crazy. What was I going to do? Report someone for sitting too still? Campus security would think I was having a stress-induced breakdown, so I stayed. But I couldn't study anymore. I pretended to read, my eyes moving over the same paragraph again and again. But really, I was watching them. Watching for any sign of movement. Any indication that they were a normal person just really absorbed in their book. Waiting for them to shift or stretch, or check their phone, or do literally anything. 3 a.m. came and went. They hadn't moved in over 45 minutes. I pulled out my phone and pretended to text someone, but really, I was trying to angle the camera to get a photo without being obvious. My hands were shaking slightly, and the photo came out blurry, but I could see them in it, sitting there, in that same position. That's when I noticed something else. The air around my table felt normal. Cool but not cold, the usual over-air-conditioned library temperature. But when I looked at the person across from me, I could see my breath fogging very slightly. Just in that direction. Just in that one spot. I stood up. I didn't pack my stuff, didn't close my books, just stood up. The chair scraped against the floor, loud in the silence. The person didn't react, didn't turn their head, didn't acknowledge the sound at all. I took a step toward the elevator, keeping my eyes on them. Nothing. Another step. Still nothing. I was maybe 15 feet away now, and from this angle I could see under the hood better. I could see their hands on the table, pale in the fluorescent light. I could see the book in front of them, and I could see that they weren't breathing. Their chest wasn't moving at all. Their hands were absolutely still, not even the tiny micro-movements that living people always have. They were sitting there like a photograph, like someone had paused a video, like a mannequin arranged in a studying pose. I walked faster toward the elevator. Not running, but not walking normally either. That weird fast walk you do when you're scared but don't want to look scared. I hit the elevator button and waited, staring at the doors, not looking back at the 4th floor. The elevator took forever. 30 seconds that felt like 5 minutes. When the doors finally opened, I got in and pressed the button for the ground floor. As the doors started to close, I made the mistake of looking back one more time. The person was standing up, still facing the table, still in that same posture, but vertical now. And as the elevator doors slid shut, they turned their head toward me. I didn't see their face. The hood shadowed it too much, and the doors closed too quickly. But I saw the movement, the slow, deliberate turn, the way someone looks at something they've been aware of the whole time. I went straight to the security desk on the 1st floor. The guard was an older guy, someone I'd seen dozens of times on my late-night study sessions. I tried to explain what I'd seen, but it came out confused. Someone on the 4th floor not moving, not breathing, something wrong. He looked at me with that expression people get when they think you're exhausted and stressed and seeing things. But he called it in on his radio and said someone would check it out. He suggested I go home, get some sleep, said finals week does weird things to people. I left. I didn't wait to hear what they found. I walked back to my apartment in the dark, cold November air, and I didn't look behind me once. The next day, I went back to the library during normal hours, during daylight, when it was full of people. I needed my laptop and my books. I took the elevator to the 4th floor, walked quickly to my table. My stuff was exactly where I'd left it. Books open, laptop closed, thermos tipped over, and coffee spilled across my notes. But the table across from mine was empty. No book. No sign anyone had been sitting there. I asked the circulation desk if security had found anyone on the 4th floor last night. They said they'd checked, and the floor was empty. No one there at all. I still go to the library, but never after midnight, never when it's empty. And I never, ever sit on the fourth floor. Because sometimes, when I'm on a different floor, studying during reasonable hours with plenty of people around, I'll see someone in a dark hoodie sitting alone at a table. And they'll be sitting perfectly still, not moving, not reading, just sitting. And I can never tell if it's the same person or not. I can never tell if they're breathing, and I never stay long enough to find out. I turned 32 on November 18th. It's never been a great day for a birthday, too close to Thanksgiving, when everyone's focused on family plans and travel. When I was a kid, my parties always had low turnout. As an adult, I'd gotten used to celebrating alone or with just one or two people. This year was especially quiet. I'd moved to a new city for work 6 months earlier, and most of my friends and family were scattered across the country. I'd planned to just treat myself to a nice dinner and call it a night. The first card arrived in the morning. I found it in my mailbox when I went down to check, a birthday card from my mom. That wasn't unusual. She always sent cards even though we talked on the phone regularly. But when I opened it, something felt off. The message inside read, "Happy birthday. I can't believe it's been 32 years since that crazy day at the lake house. I'll never forget how scared we were. Love you forever, Mom." I read it 3 times. We didn't have a lake house. I wasn't born at a lake house. I was born in a hospital in suburban Ohio, and my mom had told me the story a dozen times. Completely normal delivery, no complications, nothing crazy or scary about it. I figured maybe she was thinking of someone else's birthday, or maybe she'd grabbed the wrong card from a box of pre-written ones. I texted her a thank you and didn't mention it. The second card came around lunchtime. My apartment building has mail delivered twice a day, and when I checked again, there was another envelope. This one from my best friend from college. We still talked every few weeks, so a card wasn't surprising. But the message inside said, "Happy birthday to my partner in crime. Remember that time we got matching tattoos in Austin? Still the best bad decision we ever made. Love you." I don't have any tattoos. I've never been to Austin. And my friend knows this because we've talked about it before. I'm terrified of needles. Always have been. I called her immediately. The call went to voicemail. I left a message asking about the card, trying to sound casual, like it was just a funny mix-up. By evening, I'd received 6 more cards and 4 phone calls. Each one referenced memories that never happened. My brother called to wish me happy birthday and spent 5 minutes laughing about that time we got lost hiking in Colorado. We've never been hiking together. We've never been to Colorado together. A coworker I barely knew sent a card mentioning a road trip we'd apparently taken to Seattle. I've never been to Seattle in my life. Every single message referenced something specific, detailed personal memories that should exist but didn't. Inside jokes I'd never heard before, shared experiences I had no recollection of. And everyone acted like these things were completely normal, like of course I'd remember them. I tried calling people back. My brother, my mom, 2 different friends. Every conversation was the same. They'd wish me happy birthday, then casually mention these memories, and when I'd say I didn't remember them, they'd laugh like I was joking. "Come on, how could you forget that?" they'd say. "That was the best weekend we ever had." And they'd add more details, more specifics, painting vivid pictures of events I'd never experienced. My mom insisted we'd spent my 10th birthday at a lake house that belonged to a family friend. She described the house in detail, the green shutters, the dock with the missing board, the way the water looked at sunset. She told me about how I'd fallen off the dock and they'd had to pull me out, how terrified she'd been. She could describe what I was wearing, what we ate for dinner, what songs were playing on the radio, but none of it happened. None of it was real. The worst call was from someone I didn't recognize. The number wasn't in my contacts, and when I answered, a woman's voice said, "Happy birthday." I know we haven't talked in a while, but I wanted to reach out. I still think about our summer in Barcelona all the time. You changed my life that year." She sounded emotional, genuine. She mentioned specific restaurants, specific streets, a specific apartment we'd apparently shared. She called me by a nickname no one has ever called me. When I told her I'd never been to Barcelona, never met her, there was a long silence. Then she said, "That's not funny. Why are you doing this?" She sounded hurt. She hung up before I could explain. I stopped answering the phone after that. But the messages kept coming. Voicemails from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, all wishing me happy birthday, all mentioning memories that didn't exist, text messages from old coworkers, from people I'd gone to high school with, from people whose names I recognized but whose faces I couldn't quite place. Every single one referenced something we'd supposedly done together, some shared experience that should be meaningful to me. I sat in my apartment as it got dark outside, that early November darkness that arrives by 5:30 p.m., and I tried to make sense of it. Mass confusion, some kind of elaborate prank. But the details were too specific, too consistent. People were describing different events, different memories, but they all had the same quality of absolute certainty. They believed these things had happened. They could see them in their minds. They were real to everyone except me. Around 8 p.m., I got a delivery. A gift box left outside my door. No name on it, no return address. Inside was a photo album, the kind you make custom online, with professional binding and glossy pages. The cover said, 32 years of memories. I opened it. The first page showed a photo of a lake house, green shutters, a dock, sunset over the water. The next page showed a hospital room, a woman holding a newborn. But the woman wasn't my mom. She looked similar but different. Wrong. The next page showed a child's birthday party at that same lake house. A kid who looked like me but not quite right. The proportions were slightly off, the expression unfamiliar. I flipped through the album. Every page showed photos of events people had mentioned. The hiking trip in Colorado, the road trip to Seattle, the tattoo parlor in Austin. There was even a photo of an arm with a tattoo that was supposedly mine, but it wasn't my arm. The hand was different, the wrist angle wrong. The summer in Barcelona, pages and pages of photos showing someone who looked like me with that woman who'd called, both of them smiling at cameras in front of famous landmarks I'd never seen in person. Every photo looked real, professional quality, proper lighting, no obvious signs of manipulation. But they weren't real. They couldn't be real because I wasn't in them. Someone who looked like me was in them, but it wasn't me. I called my mom back. It was late, but I needed to talk to someone. When she answered, I tried to explain about the album, about the photos. She listened quietly, then said, "Honey, I think you need to see someone. This isn't like you. Are you feeling okay? Is the stress getting to you?" "Mom, I'm telling you, I don't remember any of this. None of these things happened to me." There was a pause. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "Maybe they happened to you and you just weren't there." I didn't know what that meant. I still don't. She tried to clarify, but it came out confused, like she was grasping for words to explain something that didn't make sense even to her. Eventually, she said she loved me, and we should talk tomorrow when I'd had some rest. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my couch with that photo album, going through it page by page, studying each image, looking for proof they were fake, looking for evidence of Photoshop or manipulation. But if they were fake, they were perfect. Every shadow fell correctly. Every reflection was accurate. Every background detail was consistent. The sun came up on November 19th. My birthday was over. I made coffee and checked my phone. All the messages from yesterday were still there, dozens of them, all referencing memories I didn't have. I opened my text chain with my best friend from college. Above yesterday's birthday message about the Austin tattoos, I could see our entire conversation history, years of texts, and scattered throughout were references to that trip to Austin, photos she'd sent me from that night, messages where we joked about it. All of it was there, in my phone, in our history, but I had no memory of any of it. I pulled up my photo library. I searched for Austin. 17 results. Photos of me, or someone who looked exactly like me, in a tattoo parlor. Photos of the tattoo. Photos of me and my friend laughing, showing off our matching ink. The metadata showed the correct date, the correct location. My phone believed I'd taken these photos, but I hadn't. I couldn't have. I'm writing this 3 days later. November 22nd. The memories people described haven't come back to me. They still feel completely foreign, like stories about a stranger's life. But the evidence keeps mounting. I've found plane tickets in my email for trips I don't remember taking, receipts for restaurants in cities I've never visited, social media posts from my own accounts describing experiences I don't recall. Every digital footprint of my life suggests I've lived all these moments. Every person I know confirms them. The only thing missing is me, my actual consciousness, my lived experience, my memory of being there. I don't know what's happening. I don't know if I'm losing my mind, if there's some medical explanation, if this is some elaborate gaslighting scheme. All I know is that somewhere there's a version of my life that everyone else remembers and can prove existed. A version with photos and witnesses and documentation. A version that's real to everyone except me. And I'm terrified that the life I remember living, the one I'm sure is real, the one I can feel and touch and recall, might be the fake one. That I might be the one who's wrong. That somewhere, somehow, I've been living a borrowed life, and on my 32nd birthday, reality finally caught up with me. I haven't told anyone else about this. Who would believe me? I barely believe myself. But I'm afraid to go to sleep now. Afraid that when I wake up, more memories will be wrong. Afraid that I'll remember things I never did, or forget things I know happened. Afraid that the person I am is slowly being replaced by someone else. Someone who lived all those experiences, who has all those memories, who everyone else already thinks I am. Happy birthday to whoever that person is. I hope they're ready to take over. I take the same train every night, the 547 from downtown, 12 stops to the suburb where I live. It's a miserable commute in November, dark by the time I leave work, crowded with evening rush hour, and lately the trains have been delayed constantly because of wet leaves on the tracks. But it's routine. I know which car to board, to be closest to the exit at my stop. I know which seats are usually available. I know the rhythm of it, even when I'm exhausted and just want to be home. Last Tuesday, November 14th, I noticed someone on the platform. Not unusual. There are always dozens of people waiting for the train, but this person stood out because they were completely still while everyone else shifted and moved and checked their phones. They were wearing a long, dark coat and standing near the far end of the platform, partially obscured by the crowd. I didn't think much of it. The train arrived, everyone pushed on, and I forgot about them. The train was packed, standing room only. I grabbed a pole near the door and settled in for the ride, watching the dark tunnel walls flash by in the windows. We stopped at the first station. People got off, people got on, the usual shuffle. As the doors were closing, I glanced out the window at the platform and saw the person in the dark coat again. Same position, same stillness, standing in almost the exact same spot relative to where the train had stopped. I felt a small flicker of recognition but dismissed it. Lots of people wear dark coats in November. At the second stop, I saw them again. This time, I was paying attention. The train pulled in, and as people moved around me getting ready to exit, I kept my eyes on the platform. There they were, standing in that same relative position, about 30 feet from where my car stopped. Same coat, same posture. I craned my neck to see if I could spot them getting into one of the other cars, but the crowd was too thick, and the doors closed before I could be sure. By the third stop, I was actively looking for them. The train slowed, pulled into the station, and there they were again. Same spot, same distance from my car, like they'd been placed there deliberately. This time, I watched the doors carefully. I didn't see them board. The doors closed, the train started moving, and I stood there, feeling confused and a little unsettled. It didn't make sense. Even if they were running between cars somehow, they couldn't beat the train to the next station. I tried to logic through it. Maybe it was different people who just happened to dress similarly. Dark coats are common. Maybe I was seeing what I expected to see, pattern recognition gone wrong. But as the train continued, and I saw them at the fourth stop, then the fifth, the rationalizations got weaker. It was the same person. I could tell by the way they stood, the height, the specific way the coat hung, and they were always in the same position relative to my car, always standing perfectly still while everyone else moved around them. At the sixth stop, I pulled out my phone and tried to take a picture through the window. The platform was bright enough that I thought I could get a clear shot. I held up the phone as the train slowed, centered the camera on where they'd been appearing, and waited. The train stopped. They were there, exactly where I expected. I took 3 photos in quick succession before the doors closed. When I looked at the photos, my hands were shaking slightly. The first 2 showed the platform, the crowd, the overhead lights, but no person in a dark coat where I'd clearly seen them standing. The third photo showed something, but it was blurred, like they'd moved at the exact moment I took the picture, or like they weren't quite solid enough for the camera to capture properly. I looked up from my phone, and through the scratched window of the moving train, I could see the person's reflection. They were standing behind me, inside the train car. I spun around, my heart suddenly pounding, but there was no one there. Just the usual commuters, all avoiding eye contact, lost in their phones or staring at nothing. I checked the reflection again. Gone. I was seeing things. I had to be seeing things. At the 7th stop, I didn't look at the platform. I kept my eyes down, focused on my phone, trying to distract myself. But I could feel it. That awareness that they were out there, standing in their spot, waiting. The train started moving again, and I made the mistake of glancing at the window. Their reflection was there again, clearer this time, standing right next to me in the crowded car. But when I turned my head, the space beside me was empty. The 8th stop, the 9th stop, each time I saw them on the platform. Each time I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I was having a stress-induced episode. Maybe the repetitive nature of the commute was causing some kind of hallucination. Maybe I was more tired than I realized. But the fear in my gut wasn't listening to rationalization. Something was deeply wrong. By the 10th stop, there were fewer people in the car. Enough space that I could move around, that I could see clearly. No one was standing near me. No one in a dark coat. But in every reflective surface, the window, the metal doors, the plastic safety barrier, I could see them. Always in the same position relative to me. Always that same unchanging posture. I got off at the 11th stop, one before mine. I couldn't stay on that train anymore. A few other people got off too, and we all headed for the stairs. I walked fast, not quite running, and when I reached the street level, I pulled out my phone to call a rideshare. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock the screen. That's when I saw them at the top of the stairs behind me. The person in the dark coat ascending from the platform. Walking now, not standing still. Coming toward me at a steady, unhurried pace. I ran. I don't care how it looked to the other commuters. I ran. Down the street, away from the station, into the neighborhood I didn't know. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs ached, and then I ducked into a convenience store and stood there in the bright fluorescent light, gasping for breath, while the clerk stared at me. I called a rideshare from inside the store. I gave them an address 3 blocks away and waited inside until I saw the car pull up. Even then, I checked every reflective surface before I went outside. The store windows, the car windows, the side mirrors. Nothing. No dark coat. No figure. I got in the car and gave the driver my actual address, and we drove in silence while I watched the streets pass by. When I got home, I checked every room, turned on every light, locked every door and window. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that figure standing on the platform, reflected in glass. Always the same distance away, always watching. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I couldn't face that train, but I did something else. I pulled up the Transit Authority's website and looked at their platform cameras. They keep a live feed available for each station. I started checking the stations on my route, one by one, scanning the platforms during evening rush hour. At 5:47, when my usual train would be departing, I saw them, standing on the downtown platform where I always board. Same spot, same posture, same dark coat. The camera was grainy, but I could make them out clearly. And here's what made me close my laptop and sit in silence for 10 minutes. The timestamp on the feed showed they'd been standing in that exact position since 3:12 p.m., not moving, not shifting, just standing there for over 2.5 hours, waiting for a train that came and went multiple times. I didn't take the train for a week. I worked from home, told them I had a flu, but I kept checking those camera feeds. Every day at 5:47, they were there, always in the same spot, always perfectly still, waiting. Eventually, I had to go back to the office. I couldn't work from home forever, but I changed my routine. I take the 6:15 train now, different route, different line. For the first few days, I didn't see them. I thought maybe I'd escaped whatever that was, that by breaking my routine, I'd broken the pattern. But last night, on my new commute, I saw a figure in a dark coat on the platform. Different station, different time, different line, but the same posture, the same stillness, the same distance from where my car stopped. They're learning my new routine, and I don't know what happens when they finish learning it. I don't know what they want, or why they're following me, or what they are. All I know is that every evening when darkness falls at 5 p.m. and the platforms fill with tired commuters heading home, they're out there, waiting, watching, always staying just far enough away that I can't quite reach them, can't quite confront them, can't quite prove to anyone else that they're real. I'm writing this on my lunch break. In 4 hours, I'll have to decide whether to take the train home or find another way. But I'm starting to realize that it doesn't matter. They found me when I changed trains. They'll find me if I drive, if I take a bus, if I walk. Because the problem isn't the train. The problem is that something has marked me, has chosen me, has decided to follow me through every reflection, every window, every surface that shows what's really there, instead of what we want to see. And tonight, when I'm standing on that platform in the dark, surrounded by strangers who can't see what I see, they'll be there too, waiting, patient, getting a little bit closer each time. I installed the doorbell camera in early November after the third package disappeared from my porch. Nothing expensive, just regular deliveries, books, household items, the kind of stuff everyone orders online. But it's the principle of it. I pay for these things, and someone's just walking up and taking them. The neighborhood Facebook group had been full of complaints about package thefts, so I figured it was time to do something about it. The camera was easy to set up, one of those smart doorbells that records motion and saves everything to the cloud. I mounted it on a Saturday afternoon, tested it a few times, and felt satisfied that I'd finally catch whoever was doing this. The app on my phone would alert me whenever someone approached the door, and I could review footage anytime. Simple solution to a frustrating problem. For the first few days, nothing unusual happened. I got alerts when the mail carrier came, when a delivery driver dropped off a package, when the neighbor's cat wandered across my porch. Normal stuff. I'd review the footage each evening just to stay on top of it. And everything seemed fine. No suspicious activity. No thefts. Maybe the visible camera was enough of a deterrent. Then on Thursday, November 9th, I was scrolling through the footage from the previous night and saw something odd. The camera had triggered at 3:14 a.m. I almost skipped it, figuring it was probably just an animal or a car's headlights creating shadows. But I clicked on it anyway. The footage showed my neighbor from 3 houses down standing on my porch, not doing anything, just standing there, facing my door. The timestamp said he stood there for 1 minute and 47 seconds before turning and walking away. He didn't knock, didn't leave anything, didn't take anything, just stood there in the middle of the night staring at my front door. I know this neighbor. We wave to each other when we're getting our mail. He helped me jump my car battery last winter. Nice guy, keeps his lawn neat, never caused any problems. I couldn't think of any reason he'd be on my porch at 3 in the morning. Maybe he'd seen something suspicious and was checking if I was okay. But then why not knock or ring the bell? I decided to check the previous night's footage, something I hadn't bothered to do since nothing had been stolen. I went back to Wednesday night. At 3:11 a.m., there he was again. Same thing, standing on my porch, facing the door, completely still for just under 2 minutes. Tuesday night, 3:09 a.m. Same behavior. Monday night, 3:13 a.m. Every single night since I'd installed the camera, he'd been coming to my porch in the middle of the night and just standing there. I sat there with my phone, watching clip after clip, feeling increasingly disturbed. In each video, his posture was almost identical. Arms at his sides, head tilted slightly upward, facing the door like he was studying it or listening for something. The porch light gave enough illumination that I could see his face clearly, or rather I could see that his expression was blank. Not angry, not curious, just empty. And he never blinked. In all those minutes of footage, I never saw him blink once. I didn't know what to do. Confronting him seemed awkward at best and potentially dangerous at worst. What if he reacted badly? What if there was some innocent explanation and I made things weird between us? But I also couldn't just ignore it. This was deeply abnormal behavior, and it was happening every single night. I called the non-emergency police line. The dispatcher listened to my explanation and said they'd send an officer by to take a report. 2 hours later, a patrol car pulled up and a young officer came to my door. I showed him the footage on my phone. He watched several clips, his expression growing more serious with each one. "That's definitely strange," he said. "But he's not technically doing anything illegal. He's not trying to break in, not vandalizing anything, not even trespassing since your porch is accessible from the sidewalk. Has he threatened you or made you feel unsafe in any direct way?" I admitted he hadn't. The officer suggested I talk to the neighbor first, see if there was an explanation. He said if the behavior continued or escalated, I should call back, and they'd have more grounds to intervene. He took down all my information and the neighbor's address, but I could tell he thought this was probably just some misunderstanding that would clear itself up. After he left, I tried to go about my day normally, but I kept thinking about those videos, the blankness of the neighbor's face, the precise stillness of his posture, the fact that he'd been doing this every night, probably long before I installed the camera. How many times had he stood on my porch while I slept inside, just feet away, separated only by a door? That night, I barely slept. I kept my phone next to my bed, volume turned up, waiting for the motion alert. At 3:08 a.m., it came. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the live feed. There he was, walking up my driveway. I watched in real time as he climbed my porch steps and took his position facing the door. My heart was racing. I was looking at him through the camera while he stood just outside, so close I could probably hear him if he made any sound. I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I opened the camera's two-way audio feature. "I can see you," I said, my voice coming out shakier than I intended. "I know you're out there." On the screen, I watched him. He didn't react, didn't turn toward the camera, didn't step back, didn't change his expression at all. He just kept standing there, staring at my door. I tried again, louder this time. "I've called the police. You need to leave." Nothing. No response whatsoever. I sat there for 10 minutes, watching him watch my door, until finally he turned and walked away, just like he did in all the other videos. Same measured pace, same blank expression like nothing had happened. The next morning, I saw him outside getting his newspaper. I walked over, trying to keep my voice calm and neighborly. "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" He smiled, friendly as always. "Sure, what's up?" I explained that I'd installed a camera and had seen him on my porch several nights in a row. I asked if everything was okay, if there was something I should know about. His smile never wavered. "I think you've got me confused with someone else," he said. "I haven't been anywhere near your porch. Must be someone who looks like me." I pulled out my phone and showed him the footage. Him, clearly visible, clearly identifiable, standing on my porch at 3 in the morning. He watched it, still smiling, then looked at me with what seemed like genuine confusion. "That's weird," he said. "That does look like me. But I promise you, I've been asleep every night. I'm a pretty heavy sleeper. My wife jokes that a tornado couldn't wake me up. Maybe it's some kind of glitch with your camera, deep fake or something." His wife came out then, asked what we were talking about. I showed her the footage too. She watched it, then laughed. "That's impossible. He snores so loud I'd know if he got up in the middle of the night. Trust me, he doesn't go anywhere between bedtime and morning. I'd kill for that kind of uninterrupted sleep." They both seemed so genuinely confused and convinced that I started doubting myself. Could it be a camera malfunction, some kind of digital artifact? But the image was so clear, so detailed, and it happened every single night, always around the same time. I went home feeling unsettled and uncertain. That night, I set up my laptop on my kitchen table, angled so I could see my front door through the window. At 3:11 a.m., I watched through the window as the neighbor climbed my porch steps and took his position. At the same moment, my phone buzzed with the doorbell camera alert. I was seeing him in real life and on camera simultaneously. He was absolutely, definitely there. But here's what made me go cold. While I was watching him through the window, I saw his bedroom light turn on. I could see directly into his house from where I sat. I watched his silhouette move across the bedroom window, watched him go into the bathroom. The light came on there too. He was in his house and on my porch at the same time. Both versions of him were completely solid, completely real. I sat there frozen, not knowing what I was seeing, not understanding how it was possible. After 2 minutes, the version on my porch turned and walked away, just like always. The version in his house turned off the bathroom light and went back to bed. And I sat in my dark kitchen, watching both locations, trying to understand what I'd just witnessed. I haven't confronted him again. What would I say? I've continued reviewing the footage every night. He's still there, every night between 3:08 and 3:15 a.m., standing on my porch, staring at my door. And every morning, he waves to me from his driveway, friendly and normal, with absolutely no awareness of what he does while he sleeps. Or at least, that's what I'm telling myself. Because the alternative, that he knows exactly what he's doing, that there are two of him, or that something is using his face to visit me every night, is too disturbing to accept. It happened at exactly 11:11 p.m. on November 11th. I remember because I'd been lying in bed scrolling through my phone, and I'd noticed the time right before it rang. 11:11. Make a wish, that stupid thing people say. I didn't make a wish. I just noted the time and kept scrolling. Then my phone started ringing, the screen lighting up the dark bedroom, and I looked at the caller ID. It was my own number. My phone was calling itself. My first thought was that it was some kind of scam. Spoofing numbers is easy now, and scammers do it all the time to make calls look legitimate. But seeing my exact number on the screen while holding my phone was jarring in a way I wasn't prepared for. I almost didn't answer. I should not have answered. But curiosity got the better of me, and I swiped to accept the call. "Hello," I said, expecting silence, or a robocall, or maybe some scammer with a thick accent trying to tell me my car's extended warranty was expiring. Instead, I heard my own voice. Not similar to my voice. Not someone who sounded kind of like me, My exact voice, with the same inflection, the same slight rasp I get late at night. "Don't go to the intersection tomorrow," it said. "Don't go to the intersection of Maple and 5th at 3:30, no matter what. Promise me you won't go." I sat up in bed, my heart suddenly pounding. Who is this? Even as I asked, I knew how stupid the question was. I could hear myself speaking through the phone. The voice was identical, the way I pronounced certain words, the rhythm of my speech patterns. It was like listening to a recording of myself, except I'd never said these words before. "Please," the voice said, and I could hear desperation in it, my own desperation. "I don't have much time. Just promise me you won't go to that intersection tomorrow at 3:30. Don't go there. Don't be anywhere near there. Promise me." "This isn't funny," I said, trying to sound angry instead of scared. "I don't know how you're doing this, but I'm you," the voice interrupted. "I know you don't believe me. I wouldn't believe me either. But I'm you, and I'm calling to tell you not to go to Maple and 5th tomorrow at 3:30. That's all I can say. That's all I'm allowed to say. Just don't go, please." The call ended, just cut off, leaving me staring at my phone screen in the darkness. The call log showed an incoming call from my own number, duration 43 seconds. I tried calling back immediately. It rang once and went to my own voicemail, my voice telling me to leave a message after the tone. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying the conversation in my head, trying to find some rational explanation. A very sophisticated scam. AI voice cloning. I'd read articles about how good that technology was getting. Someone had probably scraped my voice from social media videos or voicemails and created a replica. But why? What was the point of warning me away from a random intersection? I pulled up a map on my phone. Maple and 5th. I knew exactly where it was. A busy intersection about 2 miles from my apartment. I drove through it almost every day on my way to work. There was a coffee shop on one corner, a gas station on another. Nothing special about it. Nothing that would make it significant. By morning, I'd almost convinced myself to forget about it. Just some weird prank, nothing to worry about. But I couldn't shake the memory of that voice, my voice, and the fear in it. The desperation. Whoever or whatever had called me had sounded genuinely terrified. I went to work like normal, tried to focus on my tasks, but as the day wore on, I kept checking the time. 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 2:30 p.m. At 3 I was sitting at my desk, trying to decide what to do. Part of me wanted to drive to that intersection just to prove nothing would happen, to confront whatever this was. Part of me wanted to stay as far away as possible. At 3:15, I made a decision. I pulled up a local news live stream on my computer, one of those traffic cameras the city operates. It took me a few minutes to find the right one, but there it was. A live feed of the intersection of Maple and 5th. I maximized the window and watched. The intersection looked completely normal. Cars stopping at the red light, then proceeding when it turned green. Pedestrians crossing. A completely ordinary Tuesday afternoon in November. I felt stupid for even checking, for giving in to paranoia over a weird phone call. At 3:29, I almost closed the window. This was ridiculous. Nothing was going to happen. But I kept watching, my eyes locked on the screen. 3:30 arrived. The light turned red. Cars stopped. And then I saw it. A truck ran the red light at full speed. A big pickup truck barreling through the intersection without even slowing down. I watched as it slammed into a sedan that had just started to cross on the green light. The impact was massive. The sedan spun, was hit by another car trying to stop, and then a third vehicle plowed into the wreckage. Within seconds, the intersection was a chaos of twisted metal and shattered glass. I sat at my desk, staring at my computer screen, watching emergency vehicles arrive, watching people run to help, watching the traffic camera capture every horrible detail. And I kept thinking about one thing. If I'd gone to that intersection, if I'd been driving through at exactly 3:30 like I sometimes did on my way to the coffee shop, I would have been one of those cars. The sedan that got hit first was the same make and model as mine. Same color. In the brief moment before impact, I'd seen it clearly on the camera feed. It could have been my car. It should have been my car if I hadn't received that warning. I left work early. Drove home in a daze. The whole way, I kept my phone on the passenger seat, half expecting it to ring again. When I got home, I locked my door and sat on my couch, trying to process what had happened. The rational explanations didn't work anymore. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't a coincidence. Someone, or some version of me, had known exactly what was going to happen at that intersection and had called to warn me. Had saved my life with a 43-second phone call, but that created questions I couldn't answer. How did they know? If it was really me calling from some other time or place, what had happened in their version of events? Had they been at that intersection? Had they been in that sedan? Was I talking to a version of myself who hadn't received the warning and had somehow found a way to reach back and change things? I checked the news reports. 3 people were in critical condition. The driver of the sedan, a woman in her 30s, wasn't expected to survive. I stared at her photo on the news website and felt sick. That should have been me. By all rights, by whatever pattern or fate or coincidence governed the universe, I should have been the one in that car. Night fell. November darkness, arriving early, like always. I kept my phone next to me, checking it compulsively. No more calls. No more messages, just silence. At 11:11 p.m., I was sitting in the same spot I'd been 24 hours earlier, and I realized something. If a version of me had called to prevent me from going to that intersection, if they'd succeeded in changing what happened, then they'd created a paradox. In their timeline, I went to the intersection and something terrible happened. But in this timeline, I didn't go. So what happened to their timeline? Did it still exist? Was there a version of me somewhere who had lived through whatever horror occurred at 3:30, who had somehow survived long enough to make that call? My phone rang. Same time, 11:11 p.m., November 12th. Same caller ID, my own number. My hand shook as I answered it. "Hello?" I said. Silence. Just breathing. My own breathing, slightly labored like someone who'd been running or crying or both. "Are you okay?" I asked. Am I? "Thank you," the voice said. My voice. But it sounded wrong now, hollow and distant. "Thank you for listening. Thank you for staying away." "What happened to you?" I asked. "What happened in your timeline?" "It doesn't matter now," the voice said. "You're safe. That's all that matters. You're safe, and you won't have to make the call. You won't have to be me." "I don't understand," I said. "How is this possible? How are you calling me?" "November 11th at 11:11, the voice said. "That's when the walls are thinnest. That's when you can reach through. I figured it out too late to save myself, but early enough to save you. To save us." "What do you mean, too late to save yourself?" The breathing on the other end became more labored. "The intersection," the voice said. "I was there. I was in the car. I've been trying to call ever since, but I can only reach through on 11:11. Only on the 11th. This is my second chance, my last chance. But if I didn't go, then you didn't go, and—" "It doesn't work like that," the voice interrupted. "My timeline already happened. I can't change what happened to me. I can only change what happens to you, and I did. You're alive, and you'll stay alive, and you won't have to become me. You won't have to be the one who makes this call." "Wait," I said, but the line was already dead. I sat there in the darkness holding my phone, trying to understand. Somewhere, in some version of November, I'd gone to that intersection. I'd been in that sedan, and somehow, from whatever place people go when they die, I'd found a way to reach back through the calendar's alignment and warn myself, save myself, create a new timeline where I lived. It's been a week now. November 18th. No more calls. I drive past the intersection of Maple and 5th every day on my way to work, and every time I do, I think about the version of me who didn't get the warning, who didn't have a future self reaching back to save them. And I wonder, if the walls are thinnest on 11/11 and I'm alive now in a timeline that shouldn't exist, what happens next November 11th? Will I be the one making the call to another version of myself? Will I be the one warning someone about something I can see coming but they can't? Or is that loop closed now, that timeline erased? I don't know. All I know is that when next November comes, when 11:11 p.m. arrives on the 11th day of the 11th month, I'll be waiting by my phone, just in case I need to warn myself about something, just in case somewhere, in some other version of time, I'm the one who needs saving. I've been doing delivery driving for 3 years now, and November is always the worst month. The holiday shopping starts ramping up, but it's dark by 5 p.m. and the routes get longer. Rural deliveries are the hardest. Houses spread far apart. Driveways that turn into mud pits from the rain. Addresses that don't show up right on GPS. Last Tuesday, I got stuck with a route that took me an hour outside the city, and my last delivery was supposed to be the easiest one. It wasn't. The address was for a house at the end of a long dirt road. The delivery notes were unusually specific. Gray farmhouse, red mailbox at the road, driveway curves left then right, porch light will be on. I'd never seen notes that detailed before, but I figured the customer just wanted to make sure I found the place. It was already past 6 p.m., fully dark, and I wanted to finish and get back to the depot before it closed at 7. I found the red mailbox exactly where the note said it would be. Turned onto the driveway, and it curved left then right, just like the description. The porch light was on. Everything matched perfectly. I grabbed the package, some kind of electronics, medium-sized box, and stepped out of my van into the cold November air. That's when I noticed the first thing that bothered me. There were fresh tire tracks in the mud leading up to the house, but they didn't look right. They were too fresh, like someone had just driven through minutes ago, but the mud in this area had been drying all day. It hadn't rained since morning. The tracks shouldn't have been that wet and defined. I walked up to the porch, and that's when I saw the second thing. There was a note taped to the door, handwritten, my name at the top. Thanks for delivering this. I knew you'd arrive at 6:14 p.m. Just leave it by the door. I checked my phone. It was 6:14 exactly. I stood there holding the package, reading that note 3 times. How could they know the exact minute I'd arrive? I didn't even know until I'd driven it. Traffic, other stops, a dozen variables could have changed my arrival time by 5 or 10 minutes in either direction, but they'd written 6:14, and they'd been right. The porch light hummed above me, one of those old fixtures with a yellowish bulb. I looked around and noticed more details that felt wrong. The porch had been swept recently. I could see the brush marks in the dust, but leaves were everywhere in November, constantly falling, and there should have been at least a few on a porch this far into the woods. The welcome mat was perfectly centered, like someone had measured it. And when I looked at the windows, I could see the curtains were open just slightly. The same amount on each window, like they'd been staged. I heard something from inside the house, not footsteps or voices, but a mechanical sound. A click, then a whir, then silence, like a timer or a camera shutter. My hands tightened on the package, and I stepped back from the door. Every instinct I developed from 3 years of deliveries was screaming at me that something was wrong. I looked back at my van. The driveway curved in a way that meant I couldn't see the road from here. I was completely isolated, no other houses visible through the trees, and as I stood there, I noticed there were no lights on inside the house. The porch light was on, but every window was dark. No TV glow, no lamps, nothing. Just an empty house with a porch light that someone had turned on at exactly the right time, and a note that predicted when I'd arrive. I put the package down on the porch, right by the door like the note said, but I took a photo of it with my delivery scanner, backing up while I did it. Another click came from inside the house, louder this time. I turned and walked quickly back to my van, not quite running, but close. The mud grabbed at my boots, and I nearly slipped on those 2 fresh tire tracks. When I got to my van, I looked back at the house one more time. In the window to the left of the door, I saw a light come on, just for a second, illuminating what looked like a camera on a tripod pointed at the porch. Then darkness again. I drove out of there faster than I should have on a muddy driveway. When I got back to the depot, I filed a report with the supervisor. Told them about the note, the timing, the feeling that something had been orchestrated. They looked at the delivery details and went quiet. The customer name was just initials. The payment method was a prepaid card. The address existed, but when they looked it up on the county records, the property was listed as abandoned. They told me not to worry about it, that sometimes people use abandoned properties for deliveries they don't want traced. But that didn't explain the porch light, or the note, or how someone knew exactly when I'd arrive. The supervisor said he'd flag the address, and we wouldn't deliver there again. I still think about that house sometimes, about the precision of it all, the detailed notes that matched reality perfectly, the fresh tire tracks that shouldn't have been fresh, the timer clicking inside an empty building. Someone had planned every detail, predicted my exact arrival time, and set up something in that house. I don't know what I was supposed to walk into, what would have happened if I'd knocked on that door or tried to look in those windows. But someone wanted me there at exactly 6:14 p.m., and they'd gone to elaborate lengths to make sure everything would be perfect when I arrived. Thank you for listening to these 10 true November horror stories here on Untold Whispers. If these tales left you unsettled, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our next collection of strange encounters and unexplained experiences. The darkness holds many secrets, and we're here to share them with you. Until next time, stay safe out there, and remember, sometimes the most terrifying stories are the ones that could happen to anyone.